Hello my friends, welcome back. This is Maltanen, and today I'm very excited to be the first one to show you a new 3D camera tracker inside After Effects CS6. So let's jump in. A 3D tracker is my most favorite new feature in After Effects CS6, among of course the amazing hash cache and the new 3D capabilities of After Effects. But let's focus on the camera tracker. So I've got this footage here that comes from Hollywood Camera Works. You can download it on their website in the download section. And honestly, there's not much that I can do a tutorial on as far as this camera tracker goes, because it's as simple as dragging it onto the footage, and that's pretty much it. But before I do it, I'm going to place this composition inside our final composition like so, because I just like to keep the footage in a separate comp. So let's just jump in and drag the 3D camera tracker and watch it do its thing. As you can see, we've got the familiar message analyzing in background. This is step 1 out of 2. The first one is tracking, 2D tracking, and the second one is 3D solving. It's amazing how well and how fast this works. As you can see, the camera was already solved like immediately, and we've got a couple of 3D trackers and some strange indicator jumping around the comp area. But let's focus on the settings for now. We've got, of course, the track point size, which we can use to orient ourselves better in the 3D environment. As you can see, the tracker did a pretty good job. Everything sticks nicely, but to make sure how good the track is, we can twirl down the advanced section here, and we can check the average error indicator. This value, the smaller it is, the better. An average error of 1.04 pixels means that there's an average difference between the 3D solved points and the 2D tracked ones. So the smaller this value, the better. But 1 pixel is not the end of the world. I think we can go ahead with that. But before we do, I'm going to show you some different settings that we've got here. We've got method used. The solve method was set to auto detect, and we've got 3 methods to choose from. And usually when you just apply the 3D tracker, it tracks the shot immediately and tries to estimate which method to use. And this one was called typical. And yeah, this is a pretty typical shot. The other method is mostly flat scene. That means there's very little parallax happening in the shot. And the third one is tripod pan, also called a nodal pan. So basically the camera is fixed in one position and it only pans from it. So basically there's no parallax in those kind of shots, or very, very, very little, even less than in mostly flat scene. Other settings we've got here is fixed angle of view or variable zoom, or even if we do have the specification of the lenses, we can specify the view angle. But usually what you want to do when you're doing tracking shots is to have a fixed angle of view, which means that the camera is not zooming in any way. So everything seems fine. As you can see, our trackers disappeared, and that's because the effect is not selected. If I do select it, I get the tracking points back. If for some reason you would like to have those tracking markers visible at all times, you can just click here and choose render track points. So right now, if I deselect the footage, the tracking points are still visible. Also, we've got another setting called target size, and as you can see, we've got this bullseye target display when we navigate through our footage, and that is basically what it means. If I increase this value, I have a bigger target size. This is useful if the scene we are tracking has a really huge depth, and at some points we might not even see the target. So that's that. Okay, we've got the create camera option, but before we do that, I'm going to show you a more convenient way of creating a camera, in my opinion, which is simply selecting some points on the plane. So right now, as you can see, if I only put my cursor between 3 solved points, I get this triangle area with the bullseye in the middle. And that is the estimation of the plane that we're on. So right now, if I would like to create a ground plane, which is something that I tend to do at the beginning, I would just simply choose this one, right? But to have even better results, it's good to select a couple of those markers manually. So I can just start dragging with my left mouse button and just select all the trackers that I'm interested in, and I can even add those in the back while holding Shift, and this basically creates an estimation of my ground plane. If I now move my mouse right to the bullseye, I can drag this this target shield and see if my plane seems to be working as it should. And right now I think it's a little bit off. See, it seems like it's a little bit curved. So I'm gonna look for a better place to estimate my ground plane, maybe this one. Even though these are the same points, maybe this time it will be a little bit better. Maybe let's grab these one as well. Okay, this seems okay. So let's just click here with my right mouse button, and I can simply choose one of the following options. And let's just try with Create Text and Camera. And when I do that, the new camera is being created and a new text layer as well. And as you can see now, when I scrub the timeline, the text just sits in my 3D space like it should, which is awesome. I can now rotate it, for example, 90 degrees. That should be fine. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm using a new 3D ray traced renderer, which allows me to actually extrude the text, but I'm sure there will be many tutorials on how to extrude stuff popping up just as I record this tutorial, so I'm not going to be focusing it on this very much. But let's just extrude it and maybe add a bevel. My favorite type is concave. We don't really see much right now because there are no lights in our scene. So let's just add a light really quickly. A new light, spotlight. Okay, here we go. And now that looks just perfect. So let's just go ahead and maybe let's get rid of this text for now and of this light and start treating the footage. So I'm just gonna jump right in here, and I'm going to do a quick trick to increase the quality of the footage a little bit, because I'm expecting this key to not be such a perfect thing. So instead of explaining what I'm going to do, I'm going to direct you to MotionWorks, where you can find an episode which I describe exactly what and how and why I do things. So let's just jump right in. I'm going to apply Channel Combiner, and I'm going to translate the RGB to YUV, and I'm going to add a channel blur. I'm going to blur the green and blue channel just a little bit, and then I'm going to apply Channel Combiner again and reverse the process, which doesn't really change much for the eye, but the keyer likes this type of shots better. So I'm just going to call this one green fixed. Now I'm going to do a pre-key for it. So I'm going to use color range to do a very fast and dirty key like this, just selecting all the areas like so. Okay, that seems to do the trick. Maybe we can also add a little bit of this shadow over here. Okay, that's better. And now we can actually use a simple choker to extend the green that we keyed out, and we can call this fixed pre-key. And now we can apply key light. Oh, you know what? No, actually, before we apply key light, we can just very quickly and very dirty garbage mask this shot. We already have a pretty tight garbage matte over here, but we want to get rid of all the extra stuff that was going on in the scene. So I'm just going to very quickly animate this mask like so. Okay, move it over here further, and I think that's gonna be just fine. Okay, we can live with that. Let's move one step forward and apply key light to the footage. And we're not gonna dive into the keying process too much because we've got better things to do. Yeah, we've got some shadowing going on over here. Okay, we're not gonna worry about that right now. I'm just gonna crush the whites a little bit, get rid of the blacks, have a really harsh key right now, but I guess it has to work. And let's go back to our final comp. We've got our actress keyed out, and now we still have our 3D data on this layer, so that's exactly what we want. So I do have a pre-built 3D room that looks more or less like this, and I'm going to use it and place it in my final comp. So I'm going to drag it over here and click the collapse transformation and turn it into a 3D. And now I only have to position it correctly, right? So because right now it sits somewhere, I don't know where. So let's just go ahead and click on our footage. I shouldn't have deleted that text layer, but that doesn't matter. I can still go ahead and select my points. These and these, I remember they were sitting on the ground plane. So I'm going to maybe create a null this time, so I can keep it for reference later. And right now I'm going to use a new option regarding parenting. I'm going to parent my 3D room to this tracking null using a shift key. When I do that, the room not only gets parented, but it also gets oriented and moved and scaled according to all the parameters of the null. Right now I don't want to really keep all the orientation and scale, so I'm just going to unlink it so the null stays as it was in its original position, but now I can manipulate my room. So I'm going to rotate it so that it looks like this. It should be rotated 90 degrees, and I can also scale it, so I can basically put the actress in the room, and as you can see it fits quite nice. Maybe let's rotate it a little bit, maybe scale it even further. Whoops, sorry, wrong parameter. Scale it, okay. We can uncheck the uniform scaling, and let's maybe make the room not so tall. We can make it wider like that. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so right now the last thing I want to do is to create something to grab the reflections. So to do that, I'm going to basically create a new solid layer. Let's just go ahead, layer, new solid. I'm going to make it comp size. I'm going to turn it into a 3D layer, put it below our room. That actually doesn't matter, but it makes more sense to me. I'm going to parent it the same way I did with the room. Now I'm going to unlink it, and I'm going to scale it. Scale it really big. Okay, like that. That should cover the whole ground area that I've got here. And the only thing left to do is to go into the material options and turn on reflection intensity. And when I do that, hopefully I will start getting reflections, but I do not. And why is that? I needed to put the layer above the 3D room, so now that makes sense. Let's just turn on our footage, and as you can see, now our actress is right in the middle of the shot, but for some reason, since we don't have the floor, it looks, she's lacking her own reflections. So to fix that, I think we can actually go in here and make this, make a pre-comp out of this, call it final key, And since this is a 2D layer, we can't really reflect it on our 3D layers. So I'm just gonna fake it. Let's just go ahead and fake it. Let's unlink the uniform scaling, go -100 on the y-axis, reposition it, and blur it, directional blur, like that. And we can do something like that. Maybe even add a adjustment layer. Let's just go ahead, layer, new adjustment layer, and apply linear wipe to our layer. Put it between those two, set the angle to 0, and now we can start feathering it out. Okay, but I'm expecting this to go, yeah, it goes up, so I will need to animate the position of this layer. No biggie. Keyframe. Let's move it down like that. Also, we need to change the linear wipe, so I'm going to lock this palette so I can animate it as I go. So like this, and in here the layer should go down. Okay, it already did, but now I need to pull this feathering down as well. Okay, that looks good, and here we can push it even further down and maybe do this. Okay, that's more or less okay, so let's see how that resembles in our final comp. Okay, that looks way better as far as the reference in the 3D space, but there's something else that we can do to make it look as she's standing on something. We can change in the material options of the ground plane, we can change the reflection sharpness, which will cause our reflections to blur. So let's try 50%. Okay, now that looks way better. Okay, I think I'm happy with that, but to make this a semi-complete tutorial about new features, I can't really get away without doing some 3D type. So let's just do it like a boss. Okay, let's just do that, turn it into a 3D layer, use the same technique, so parent this layer to the null using the shift key. And now I can unlink it. I just kind of like doing things like that. Rotate it 90 degrees, increase the font size. Let's try 500. Okay, that looks better. Let's go into the material options. First, geometry options, yeah. Extrusion depth 50. Let's see how that looks. No, that's too little. 100. Still too little. 200. Okay, that's better. Let's add a bevel, concave bevel, maybe 10 pixels. And let's turn on the reflection intensity. That way, this will act as a mirror text that's made basically out of mirrors. Let's put it in its correct position. Okay, this is so sweet. And let's just move it up and push it back. We can make it float in space like that, or we can leave it on the ground plane. That's up entirely to us. Just take a look at this. It took a couple of seconds to build this. I'm just so amazed that it works, and it works so well. I just love it. Fantastic. Okay, guys, so that's it for this short introduction about some new features in After Effects. You can expect more very soon, so stay tuned. Check out my website, check out my fan page on Facebook, and basically just stay tuned. And I just can't believe how amazingly simple that is and how responsive it is. It's just fantastic. Love it.